Health Club is brought to you by Lipton Tea, still the world's #1 tea brand, and Voltic Natural Mineral Water.
Yeah, we do have to say a big thank you to our sponsors for this segment, Lipton Tea, inspiration flowing from nature, and Voltic Natural Mineral Water. Now, in the studio with me this morning, once again, we have Dr. Andre Kwesi-Kuma. He's a medical director at the Eden Family Hospital. Good morning, Doc. How are you?
Good morning.
How was your weekend?
Fine.
Good. Hopefully there was no chemical inhalation.
Oh, no. No.
All right. Let's start off. I mean, what exactly makes chemicals so poisonous?
Well, we can say generally it's a form of body injury. You know, there are different types of injuries that affect the body. The common one we know is maybe a cut or a stab or gunshot, and we see blood coming out. That's traumatic physical injury. We also have heat injury, maybe from fire or from very hot water. So we have dry heat, wet heat. We also have things from radioactive material. And so it is another form of body injury, which is the gaseous material. The body inhales and then injures the body in a number of ways. So it's also one of the ways where the body gets injured from one of these noxious agents, as we call it, that affect us in many ways.
But what exactly makes these chemicals poisonous? Because there are some that we come into contact with which will not have an effect with us, and also others that if we inhale, the effects are almost immediate. But what exactly is the composition of these chemicals that makes them so poisonous to the human being?
Okay, they have different compositions, but basically is that the body inhales oxygen as fuel to combine with the sugar and the glucose we have in the system to produce energy. So anything that compromises the use of the body's oxygen or the amount of oxygen available to the body will definitely become poisonous. So these chemicals, what they do sometimes is they reduce the amount of oxygen the body takes in, or they block the amount of oxygen the body can consume, or how the body will utilize the oxygen. Therefore, depriving the body ultimately of oxygen use, that's what makes it dangerous in a number of ways.
So are there specific chemicals that should never ever be inhaled?
Well, it depends on quantity. There are some that should never. For example, carbon monoxide that comes from the exhaust of car fumes. Very, very dangerous. The danger they pose to the body are in various degrees. For example, this detergents we use in our homes contains chlorine, also very injurious to the body, and so on and so forth. Some from industrial agents and so on. So it depends on the type of chemical, the severity, and whether the place is aerated, whether there's flow of air in and out.
Right. So these are some of the things that we would probably interact with on a day-to-day basis that over a prolonged period could cause us issues, but maybe it's just slight daily exposure is not going to do too much.
Yeah, as I said, that's also relative. There are some that for a very long period, for example, if you are working in a place where you get these chemicals over a long period, it leads to inflammation of the lungs and scarring of the lungs as well. But there's something that can be so dangerous that just exposure to it over a short period can lead to dangerous effect on the body. For instance, if there's a fire and then you are in the middle of the fire and you consume or you inhale a lot of fumes, that can kill the person, not from the fire burn, but from the fact that the person has inhaled a lot of fumes. So the circumstances tend to be different.
Now, is there a test? For instance, let's just say I've been working in a factory, I drive a trotro, whatever the case is, and I wake up today and I'm not feeling too good. Is there a test that I can come and do at your hospital that will show whether I've been exposed to such dangerous inhalations of gases?
Yes, there's a test that can be done to see the lung function. Because these exposure to gases tend to affect the way our lung works. So there are a number of tests called respiratory tests that a lot of, let's say the mines and oil industry and so on exposed to this, they tend to take their workers regularly through this test to see how the lung function is working. And if they've been exposed to this for a very long time, their lung function will tend to reduce. So if you have a good record of the patient, you'll be able to know that probably the patient is getting exposed to this chemical, therefore it's affecting his or her lung function. So,
but would you be able to isolate and find out which specific chemical it is?
Yeah, that's also possible, but that's going to take further tests. other tests, or chemical tests, laboratory tests to know exactly what is leading to that.
Okay. Now let's just say, apart from the lungs, which is the major, breathing tool, what other parts of the internal organs can actually be affected by chemical inhalation?
Well, almost every organ, because when the chemicals get into the system, when we breathe in air and gets into our lungs, whatever we take in gets distributed to the whole body. Okay. Because when you get in oxygen, the whole body needs oxygen. Every cell needs oxygen to function. Right. So when they move with these chemicals, there's something in the blood called hemoglobin, which gives the color, the red color. Yes, when these chemicals combine with hemoglobin, they get into various body organs. Okay. So the liver, the brain, the kidneys, they can all get affected once it gets distributed.
All right. And what are the particular symptoms that are associated with chemical inhalation? How do we know that somebody's been affected, if we could see it in the physiology?
Okay, the symptoms may not be specific to chemical inhalation, but they are sort of confined to the fact that it's affected the lungs. Okay. And the lungs is what takes in air. So if there's a compromise, the person, for example, have what we call air hunger. So you are breathing, but you feel that you are not getting enough.
A lot more. Right?
Yes, as if you are getting suffocated, but there's no object in your throat. Mm-hmm. So that's air hunger. That's one of it. And then there can be cough that is prolonged for a very long time. That you are taking cough syrup and everything, and it's still there. Or as you speak or cough, you tend to feel that there's some gurgling sound in the chest. That's a result of the prolonged inflammation. Mm-hmm. That could be a sign that is also, leading to let's say respiratory failure, as we say. Or you easily get tired when you do some work. It means that the lungs are getting scarred. Therefore, its function is reducing. So, for example, you could work 8 hours continuously and nothing happens, but 4 or 5 hours you're already tired. Yeah. These could be some signs that there's something really going on, and we just I almost forgot, when sometimes you cough and there's blood coming out and it's not tuberculosis, then it could be pneumonitis or inflammation of the lungs as a result of chemicals for a very long time. Okay. These are some of the signs that could signal us that there's a compromise of the lung function due to chemicals.
Okay. I've heard of stories of people who work in, for instance, factories, along with some of these dangerous chemicals, have in extreme circumstances over prolonged exposure to these develops things such as lung cancer. What other extreme ailments can you get from chemical inhalation?
Well, there are other forms of cancerous or long-term complications. Mesothelioma is one of it. It's also a type of cancer. And there's another one we also call asbestosis. Right. Yeah, the asbestos we use for roofing sheets. If the ceiling is not well done, there could be some tiny particles that could drop. So if you are living in a house, for example, that has the ceiling is not well done, you could get exposed to this chemical for about 20-30 years. Could also affect you and give you such complications. Right. Yeah. As I mentioned already, the lung is a soft tissue, but with prolonged inflammation, it becomes scar formation. So it tends to thicken up. That's also a complication that long term that can result for that. Ultimately, it can lead to respiratory failure, meaning that the lung function is reduced to such level that the reserves are all gone, and the person can no longer breathe unless the person is helped to breathe with a machine put on a ventilator. Yeah. So all these are complications that can come on from prolonged exposure to chemicals. Okay.
Yeah. Now, on a day-to-day basis, it's not necessarily a lot of harmful chemicals, but we do come across a lot of chemicals, i.e. people's perfumes, air fresheners, nail polish, all those kind of things. We can pass by them on a day-to-day basis. How detrimental are those little bits of exposure?
Those little bit of exposure will not affect the body too much, because all these you mentioned can be handled by the body in safe areas. Okay. Especially when there's a lot of air around, a lot of ventilation around, because what the body needs is oxygen. But if you are working in an area where you are exposed to these gases on a daily basis, then it's very good. It's better to protect yourself with gas mask.
A mask. Okay.
Yeah, mask. There are some normal masks that can be used, but some that are in specialized areas, you need to use gas mask that supplies oxygen directly to the body. So those people who are in those environments, encounter it on a daily basis, need to protect themselves effectively. But with the perfumes, sprays, and so on, that one, because there's a lot of oxygen around, the body is able to handle that effectively. Yeah.
Okay. Lastly, before we do actually wrap up, what would be your advice to anybody who's constantly exposed to chemicals?
Well, you need to get yourself checked in hospital, because sometimes people get exposed and then they'll take a cough syrup. 3 months later, it comes up. By the time we realize, their lung function tends to be reducing. But if they were seen in the hospital, they could have been aided properly. So they need to be checked in hospital, and then other tests can be done. An X-ray could be done to see how your lung is doing. You may need a CT scan also to see how it's doing, and then there are some tests to blow the air, to blow through the instrument to see how well your lung is functioning, so that anything can be detected early, and then you are advised what to do. But if you keep it for a very long time, it may be too late. Some body parts, when they are scarred or compromised for a very long time, it's very difficult to replenish. So getting checked yourself in hospital is one of it. That's why we advise people to do annual medical checks, so that all these things can be checked for them.
And sorry, I completely forgot this part. If we have an emergency at home and somebody has been exposed to chemicals, we can see it's affected them. What can we do at home before we actually get that person to the hospital?
Well, what can be done immediately is to get a person to an area where there's a lot of air.
So ventilation.
Yes, ventilation is very important, both for the victim and the one who is providing assistance.
Fluids, water, anything like that?
No, nothing. Some also, all those things should be avoided, because the person could be in a drowsy form, and when you give the person these fluids, you could vomit and inhale it into the lungs. So just get a person into an area where there's a lot of air.
Try and get them a lot of
and then rush to hospital, because they may need to administer oxygen to the person. The person may need to be helped to breathe physically with a machine. So all these are things that we can do in hospital. But the first aid is to get the person a lot of oxygen, a lot of air around, so that there's the percentage of the affecting gas is reduced to the barest minimum.
And then straight to the hospital.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Doc, once again. This has been Dr. Andre Kwesi Kumar, Medical Director at the Eden Family Hospital, and we'll be talking about chemical inhalation.